You better watch out, you better not cry, you better not pout, I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. He's making a list and checking it twice, gonna find out who's naughty and nice. Santa Claus is coming to town. He sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake. Oh, you better watch out, you better not cry, you better not pout, I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. Santa Claus is coming to town. The herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. Peace on earth and mercy mild, God and sinners reconciled. Joyful all ye nations rise, join the triumph of the skies. Christ is born in Bethlehem. Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. Hail the heavenborn Prince of Peace, hail the Son of Righteousness. Light and life to all he brings with healing in his wings. While he lays his glories by, born that man no more may die, born to raise the sons of earth, born to give them second birth. Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. tender and mild. Sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, shepherd dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh. O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Bells on bobtails ring, making spirits bright. What fun it is to laugh and sing a sleighing song tonight. Oh, jingle bell, oh, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bell, oh, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh. O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Bells on bobtails ring, making spirits bright. What fun it is to laugh and sing a sleighing song tonight. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Angels we have heard on high, sweetly singing o'er the plains, and the mountains in reply, echoing their joyous strains. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Shepherds, why this jubilee? Why your joyous strains prolong? What the gladsome tidings be, which inspire your heavenly song? Gloria in excelsis Deo. Gloria in excelsis Deo. We wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring to you and your kin, good tidings for Christmas and a Happy New Year. Oh, bring us a figgy pudding, oh, bring us a figgy pudding, oh, bring us a figgy pudding and a cup of good cheer. We won't go until we get some, we won't go until we get some, we won't go until we get some, so bring some out here. We wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Good morning and welcome to City Hall. This morning we're going to get started with the invocation from Mr. Hardy Powers, pastor of Western Oaks Church of the Nazarene. And I'll ask Councilman Pete White to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Let us pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. This truly is a day that you have made. We will rejoice. We will be glad in it. We ask, Lord, for your divine protection be upon this board and their families. We ask, Lord, that you be here today, give wisdom and knowledge beyond our understanding. We're thankful for this season, the season that we can praise you for sending your Son into this world so that we could have life and life everlasting. Once again, Lord, we praise you for this day, for these proceedings, and we leave them in your hands. In your precious name we pray. Amen. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll call the meeting to order, and from the Office of the Mayor we have a resolution commending Eric Lyons on his selection as December 2010 Teacher of the Month by the Rotary Club of Oklahoma City. I'll ask the clerk to go ahead and get started reading the resolution.
Whereas Eric Lyons has been named Teacher of the Month by the Rotary Club of Oklahoma City for December 2010, and whereas Eric Lyons teaches art at Putnam City West High School, and whereas Eric Lyons has been honored as the Putnam City West High School 2009-2010 Building Teacher of the Year, and he was honored as one of 5 finalists for the Putnam City Schools 2010-2011 District Teacher of the Year, and whereas Eric Lyons has been honored by the Putnam City Public Schools Foundation as an excellent educator for 2010-2011, and whereas Eric Lyons credits his students with being the little teachers who taught him the importance of establishing relationships with others and how to continue to find the joy in learning new things. And whereas Eric Lyons' ultimate goal as a teacher is to cultivate responsible citizens who are capable of looking at the world objectively, forming decisions based on facts, and communicating their intelligence in an effective way, it is his hope that this will not only enrich students' personal lives and decisions, but will also create change in our society through leadership and intelligent decision-making. And whereas Eric Lyons makes each class rewarding to students so that they can see how their learning is connected to their lives now and in the future, whereas Eric Lyons is described as an exceptional educator who demonstrates his passion for teaching and dedication to his students daily. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the City of Oklahoma City that they do hereby recognize and commend Eric Lyons on his selection as December 2010 Teacher of the Month by the Rotary Club of Oklahoma City.
And we have to vote on this, so cast your votes. And it's unanimous. Actually, I was a little worried there for a minute. Do you want to say a few words, maybe Andy should ride with you? Yes.
Thank you all for having me here today. It's an honor. I wish I had 1,000 extra chairs to bring my students to be here with me, because they're the reason why I wake up every single day. It's a blessing to go to work. I brought my assistant principal, Melanie Peeler, here with me today. She's really the backbone of the school. Some people say Buster Meeks is the one who runs it, but I think it's Melanie. And Carolyn Giss of the Putnam City Foundation. Thank you for all that you do for all of our schools, and I guess that's it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mayor, could I just say a couple of words? Eric, I'd like to offer my congratulations as well, and just wanted to let everyone know that this is the first time since we've begun these Teacher of the Month recognitions that we've had the opportunity to recognize a teacher outside of the I-89 district, although still within Oklahoma City limits. So we really appreciate, Carolyn, your efforts, and I just wanted to let everyone know that Eric would be attending the Rotary Club lunch today, and I think he knows this, but if he doesn't, he'll be receiving a gift card in the amount of $500 that is a donation from both the Rotary Club and, in this case, American Fidelity Foundation. So we want to extend our grateful thanks to Dave Lopez at the American Fidelity Foundation and the Rotary Club. Congratulations, and I'll see you at lunch. Thanks.
Thanks, Eric. On to item B and C, there's 2 appointments. Cast your votes. And it passes unanimously. On to item 4, Journal of Council Proceedings. Entertain a motion. Second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 5 is request for uncontested continuances.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I have a couple this morning, starting on page 12. Page 12 under item 8B1, item D, 2608 Northwest 12th Street. We ask that that be stricken. The owner is removed. Item G, 3124 Northeast 14th Street. We ask that that be stricken. There's a new owner. On to page 13 with item 8C1, B, 2417 Southwest Grand. We ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item 1516, Miramar Boulevard. We ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item I, 2801 Northwest 13th Street. We ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item J, 3312 Northeast 13th Street. We ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item T, 917 Northwest 89th Street. We ask that that be stricken. Again, the owner has secured. And item V, 1417 Northwest 92nd Street. We ask that be stricken. We need to rework that for additional structures. And then on to page 16, under claims for denial, we need to strike Kenneth Kirby's claim, item 8K1A. That should be stricken. And item 8K1C, Charles Starr's claim, we'd like to defer that until January 11th. That's all I have.
Are there any other requests for uncontested continuances?
Mr. Manager, unless I was misunderstood, I wanted to make sure I understood. You said one of these were stricken because the new owner?
Yes, sir.
Which one was that?
That was item G, 8B1G on 3124 Northeast 14th. So we'll still pursue it. We just need to redo the notification.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
We will recess the council meeting and convene as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority. There are 4 items. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. We'll adjourn OCMFA and convene as the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority. There are 2 items. Cast your votes. And it passes unanimously. We'll adjourn OCPPA and reconvene the council meeting for the consent docket. Are there any individual considerations? Anything else? Okay, Pat, if you want to address item O.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a minor question. On the selection of the engineers, we list 2 firms there. And was it because there was more work than one firm could handle, or was it because we needed different specialties within the 2 firms?
Normally, we've just selected one firm on this yearly contract, but yes, we do anticipate some additional work, so we interviewed 4 firms with the intent to select 2. That way it'll give us a little bit of flexibility on if we get too much work for one to do, we'll have the other one to fall back on.
Do you anticipate, Dennis, an increase in the amount of work we're going to do in this area, brownfield remediation?
Yeah, in our discussions with the planning department had quite a bit of input on this consultant selection. It's really their project to do, and yes, that was their recommendation.
Was any of the additional work associated with the Corder Shore project, or the acquisition of land for our new park?
Yeah, I don't recall, Councilman. I can find that out for you.
That's fine. Don't worry. Thank you very much. Thank you, Your Honor.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. I think we already had a motion, didn't we? Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. On to the concurrence docket. Are there any individual considerations on the concurrence docket? Seeing none, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. On to item 8, items requiring separate votes. Item 8A is a final hearing from the police department. Are there any-
We've seen this a couple of times already. This is to bring bring us into accordance with state law.
Cast your votes, and passes unanimously. Item B is a public hearing regarding dilapidated structures. Is there anybody signed up to speak on dilapidated structures? I'll entertain a motion. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item C is a public hearing regarding unsecured structures. Is there anybody here signed up to speak under unsecured structures? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item D is a revocable right-of-way permit for opening night 2011. I believe Mr. Dolisi is here to speak on that issue.
While Peter's coming up, I'm absolutely supportive of opening night and everything that goes on, but since I had to sign the request for the permit as the president of the Arts Council Board, I think I'll step out while you all vote on it.
Okay. Mr. Dolisi, would you please give your name and address for the record, please?
Excuse me?
Your name and address for the record, please.
Peter DeLisi. It's 400 West California Street, the Arts Council's address. I want to thank Gary, who just stepped out, for signing that request. We appreciate that. And we appreciate you so much. This is the 24th year for opening night, if you can believe it. And it's always been a partnership with the city of Oklahoma City, and the work that you do is so important to the success of opening night, and we really want to thank you for that. Our mission is to bring the arts and the community together at the Arts Council of Oklahoma City, and I think this event really does do just that. We bring the arts and the community together, celebrating downtown, closing off streets, and having all sorts of fun performing arts activities as we bring in the new year. I want to introduce Rachel Findley, who's the director of opening night, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about the event.
Thanks, Peter. The Arts Council is so excited to present the 24th annual opening night. Opening night 2011 will be held in 10 different downtown venues on New Year's Eve from 7 p.m. to midnight, and it ends with a fireworks finale in Kerr Park. And it actually takes over 400 volunteers to put on this event. This year we have over 40 of Oklahoma's finest entertainers lined up, and we have everything from magicians to rock bands and even roller derby girls. We'll also have a children's area in the Cox Convention Center where kids can do arts and crafts and play on an inflatable obstacle course. They can also get their faces painted. There's a complete schedule of events on our website at artscouncilokc.com, and I hope that you'll all be able to make it to opening night 2011. Thank you.
Rachel, have you planned the weather yet for that night?
I'm working on it. Yes.
If I were you, I'd put Peter in charge of the weather. You do the rest of it.
Okay, I'll do that. Hear that, Peter? Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. On to item E. It's a resolution for indebtedness for the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust. Pete, did you want to speak to this issue at all?
Yes, Pete. Okay. Marcia Slaughter is here this morning to give us a little bit of an update on this. This is a issuance of debt, so it has to come to the council as a part of the concurrence of that issuance of debt. This is in compliance with the debt schedule that they've been working on over the last few years with their business plan. It's in accordance with their capital plan, and it's in accordance with the rate increases that we've already approved. So issuing this debt will not require us to raise rates further or anything along those lines. We did raise the rates last summer or early fall, and this allows us to be able to do this.
Good morning, Vice Mayor and Council. It's an honor to be with you this morning to introduce the Oklahoma City Water Utilities request of you for issuance of revenue bonds. The proposed bond issue would refund a portion of our outstanding commercial paper. Commercial paper is the short-term debt used by the Water Utilities Trust in advance of long-term debt financing. A negotiated sale not to exceed $85 million is proposed. Aqua uses the funds for major capital expenditures, such as the new, let's go to the next slide, right? Thank you. Such as the new 10 million gallon treated water storage tank called a Clearwell in construction at the Hefner Water Treatment Plant. And the next slide. Transmission mains and wastewater treatment plant improvements and rehabilitation. I'd be happy to answer any questions about the proposal.
Marcia, do you know how those bonds will be rated?
We're currently rated AAA by Standard & Poor's and AA1 by Moody's. We'll be going through bond rating discussions later this week. We expect at least an affirmation, and of course we're always hopeful that Moody's will consider an upgrade.
Well, given the state of the municipal paper market right now, I think our rating will probably be one of the better sales here of municipal paper.
And obviously, there is no upgrade. Not obviously, there is no upgrade on a AAA bond from S&P. That's the highest rating that they give, and we're the next to highest rating from Moody's.
Any other comments or questions? Cast your votes. And passes unanimously. On to item F, it's a resolution adopting Oklahoma City Council issues strategic priorities and key results, and I believe Laura's going to...
Laura's here to answer any questions. She's helped, I think, take the council input into this. Last time when we presented this a few weeks ago, there was specific input from council on a couple of items. I know Mr. McAtee had some comments regarding the education component, and I think there was a couple of other things that we looked at and changed as we went forward, and we believe that we've made those changes. And if there's, we hope this is reflective of your thoughts and comments, and if we're ready to adopt, fine. If we need to make further changes, we can do that also.
In the area of education, I think there already has been some significant progress made. Working with the Oklahoma City School Board and their long-range plan, we've got 2 members of City Council on that committee. I think it's been helpful to see how they're working, and they're making good progress.
Yeah. Just to that point, the strategic plan is making progress. One of the recommendations coming out of the Oklahoma City Public School District strategic plan is to go to a year-round school calendar, and that was passed by the school district last night. So that was a step. And there's multiple steps that need to be taken, but that's a step that's been taken in that process. And one of the things that the council requested was to have a workshop with the school district, and we've scheduled that for sometime in early January.
And I think what the Oklahoma City School Board did last night will be an incentive for some of the other school districts that serve parts of Oklahoma City to look at that continuous learning calendar as well, because it's got some really important aspects to it that would improve, I think, the quality of education. And at this point, it does not increase the number of days, instructional days, the old calendar provided. But I think this is a good stepping stone in that direction.
Larry?
Quick question, Vice Mayor. Well, I interpret this on number 7, where it says Oklahoma City Public Schools, that is all-inclusive of all the schools within the city limits. Is that?
Yes, it's very difficult to express that.
No, I think it's very good. I just wanted to make sure I was reading that right. Thank you, ma'am.
Anything else? Any other questions? Okay. I'll entertain a motion on 8F. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. On to item 8G. It's a resolution authorizing representation.
No executive session is necessary.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion on item 8G. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. On to item 8H. It's also authorizing representation.
No executive session is necessary unless council wants to discuss it.
Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. On to item 8I. It's authorizing confession of judgment.
We ask that council approve it, but we could go in executive session if you wish to discuss it, but no executive session is necessary.
Entertain a motion. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. On to item 8J. Enter into executive session to discuss collective bargaining negotiations for fiscal year 2011-12.
We would recommend executive session.
Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 8K is claims recommended for denial. A and C have been stricken, so it's B and D only. I'll entertain a motion. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. On to item 9, claims recommended for approval. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. On to item 10, items from council. I'll start with Councilman Ryan.
Nothing, Your Honor. Thank you.
Skip.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Meg. She has something.
My microphone's not working very well, sorry. I just wanted to congratulate Wilson School. They had their ribbon cutting on Friday night. Vice Mayor was there as well. It was really a wonderful event, auditorium full, completion of a great maps project. And the important thing about it is that the neighborhood recognized early on that they didn't believe there were sufficient funds to complete the project, including 4 arts classrooms. And so the neighborhood embarked on a significant fundraising effort and actually raised more funds and made a donation to the Oklahoma City Public Schools, which is the largest private donation ever received. And it allowed the completion of these wonderful classrooms. And Wilson, the mascot of Wilson School are the Wilson Wolves. And there is a glass wall separating some old construction from new construction. And in the glass is the musical score for Peter and the Wolf. It's a really lovely, creative touch, and it was just heartwarming to see so many folks there. Shirley Shanker, Chris Frankfurt, all attended that school. So many of our community leaders, Danny B. Hightower, and to see the legacy that continues was really wonderful. And Brian, thank you for participating in the event.
Councilman White. Larry.
I'd like to congratulate our police department, or Bill City, and Cheryl Presley for the Grandparents Raising Grandkids event that happened last Saturday at the First Presbyterian Church. There were I think the total was 611 gift bags were handed out to children who are being raised by their grandparents, and these grandparents are real heroes moving into a breach to try to point their grandchildren in the right way. It was also sponsored by Sheriff Wetzel from the Sheriff's Department, and it was just a great event, and my congratulations to him, and my congratulations to the grandparents who have accepted this added responsibility. Thank you, Your Honor.
Sam?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I stepped out briefly with the comments about Oklahoma City Public Schools with regards to our strategic priorities. I couldn't agree more with Pat on the initial step that was taken last night with regards to extended learning days. Also on that agenda last night was a commitment to hire 40 teachers, Teach for America. You know, the fact that the school board made the decisions last night, I think says a lot about the extent of community involvement and community investment, and the idea that we, city, Oklahoma Public Schools, larger community, are really understanding that we all have a part and responsibility in the improvement of these schools. I think the fact that last night that it was a unanimous vote also says something about the direction of the school board that we've been so proud of here on so many occasions. And as I sit on the Strategic Planning Committee with Councilman Ryan, we generally are beginning to see an engagement and a beginning of relationships and a beginning last night in some long, hard work, but with the kind of challenge last night, I think it really speaks well of the upcoming challenges that they're going to have to step up to, and I think they'll understand that they're going to have the broader community support in making these moves. So it was just a good night all in all. Vice Mayor, I want to mention one thing also unrelated to that with regards to animal welfare. There's a celebration of the adoption work done by the shelter this past year. It's really been fantastic. 8,400 adoptions, the report I got this week up to this point. It'll probably surpass 9,000 adoptions for this calendar year, which is high for Oklahoma City. Really is beginning to address the priorities that we've put on becoming a no-kill shelter in this community. That, plus the public education that's been going on the past year, have really been two parts two legs of the stool that are in place. And I just want to comment again on the third leg that we have to also be as aggressive in our pursuit, and that's the spay and neutering. Without that, we just can't adopt our way out of this massive, massive problem. Jim, I'm going to just ask if you would look into, I'd asked a couple of months ago if the legal staff and our animal welfare staff would look into an ordinance to bring forward with regards to our field officers, our enforcement officers, on a complaint basis, when they encounter an animal complaint, that we look at an ordinance change that would give them authority to cite individuals that did not have their animals spayed or neutered with a given time to do that. Not a citywide effort at this point, but one that would not take additional budget costs. It would just be in the course of their employment when they're out on encounter. And we had talked about that a couple of months ago. I just want to see what
we've been working on it, and it's about done. We've
thank you.
Yeah, no, we should have something to you within the next week or so. Gary?
Item 11, city manager reports.
I do want to point out in your packet, and I see that Bill City's in the back, the issue with the transfer of the Hathaway Recreation Center from the Parks Department to the Police Department. That was a facility that was shut down at mid-year budget cuts, the casualty of that, and I think we've really been able to kind of come up with a win-win situation the best we can, and the Police Department's able to step in, and they're going to run their FACT program out of there, which of course takes at-risk youth in the community and works with their truancy unit program. The police athletically will be doing some work out of that facility, and their martial arts anti-gang mentoring program will work out of that facility. And so I think that's really a solid backfill of that, and I appreciate Chief City coming forth with that.
I started to comment on that under items from council, but I realized it was here. That is really a good project. It's a nice facility. It's located in a neighborhood that needs the help. I commend the police department and you for putting that together, because that's a really much needed.
And we also have this morning Jane Jenkins from downtown Oklahoma City that's going to give us a little bit of update of the progress in downtown Oklahoma City. And I like to call what's going on in downtown Oklahoma City right now progress.
It's progress. This is just part of, every so often I like to come update the council on what we're doing in downtown Oklahoma City. Since we have such a strong partnership with the city of Oklahoma City, I think it's important that the council know what's going on. So, of course, right now what's going on is downtown in December. And starting the Friday after Thanksgiving, we have a new logo for 2010. Annually, we have over 200,000 participants in downtown in December. This year, there are 14 events and attractions. It's all about fun for the family. It lasts about 40 days. It's 14 events that's sustained over a 40-day period of time, and we have over 25 sponsors that help downtown Oklahoma City put on this event, and it will run through January 2nd. In addition to the signature events of like the snow tubing and the ice skating, which is just here to our west, we have several new events this year. The Devon Energy Holiday River Parade returned, and this year they were a part of downtown in December with Gary Mars, Councilman Mars being the Grand Marshal of that parade. It was my first year to attend that event, and what a magnificent, magical event it was. This year, OG&E partnered with the Bricktown Association to sponsor canal lights on the canal north of Reno. OG&E normally is the sponsor of the lights in the Crystal Bridge in the Myriad Gardens, which is closed this year. So they just rediverted some of their sponsorship money and helped Bricktown Association put some lights on the canal. And this year, for the first time, Stonegate Hogan, which is the developer of the lower Bricktown complex, put lights on the lower Bricktown Canal. If you haven't been down there to see those lights, they really are spectacular. They're really beautiful. Bricktown looks really, really, really good this year. Other new events, we brought the Oklahoma City Cityscape exhibit to Automobile Alley. It's at the corner of 10th and Broadway. Again, if you haven't been by this, I encourage you to go visit it. The Legos exhibit of downtown Oklahoma City is really amazing. And it's an admission charge, but all of the money goes to benefit Educare, which is a wonderful, wonderful cause in our community. And we're delighted to have this attraction as part of Downtown in December this year. Another diversion of OG&E from the Crystal Bridge this year was to sponsor an OG&E night with our new hockey team, the Oklahoma City Barons. This will be this Saturday, December 17th. You'll get a Snuggie if you go to the game, an OG&E Snuggie. And then we added 4 buildings to the Automobile Alley lights on Broadway. These are LED light curtains that go to the buildings that are on Broadway. Hopefully, in the next 2 to 3 years, we will have all of Broadway completed as part of Downtown in December, and it will just be a light curtain all the way from 10th to 4th on Broadway. Of course, what's really going on right now is we are starting to get a new bid started, hopefully April the 1st, and I just sort of wanted to review the City Council timeline for getting this bid started. Next week, we will have a public hearing to consider. It will be the first public hearing for the bid, and you will consider resolution number 3 that will create the district. The next date for the council will be January the 18th. That will include resolution number 4, which will propose the assessment roll and set the date of the second public hearing, which all goes according to schedule, will be February 8th of 2011, and the ordinance will also be introduced. On February 8th, 2011, hopefully will be the final public hearing on the ordinance. The professional services agreement with DOKC for management of the Business Improvement District will be approved, and resolution number 5 will confirm the assessment roll. Our timeline from then gives us 6 weeks to transition from the first Business Improvement District to the second generation of the Business Improvement District, which we plan to start on April 1st of 2011. So more about that to come. So what are some of the things that will happen as part of the new bid? Well, we'll have new service levels for the districts in cleaning and landscaping. This is largely related to Project 180, where we will have to start preparing additional services for the streetscape improvement projects that are coming in. Once Project 80 is complete and the contract maintenance is over, then the Business Improvement District is planning to take over maintaining the landscape that's part of Project 180. So our first order of business will be preparing to do that as we work through Project 180. Also new this year is the Bricktown Marketing and Administration Subdistrict Service. The Bricktown property owners will be assessing themselves an additional amount of money in addition to canal maintenance to provide administrative and marketing support for the Bricktown Association. Right now, we are planning to have at least 2 new character districts. The bid board is discussing a possibility of 3, and we will need to develop new logos for those districts to join Bricktown, Automobile Alley, the Central Business District, and the Arts District. So that will be part of our bid services. There may be some of those districts that want to form nonprofit associations and create bylaws, again, similar to Automobile Alley or the Bricktown Association, and we stand ready to help them and assist them in that process. We'll expand our marketing efforts, and then we have new community development services that we're developing right now, and we're going to be working to incorporate those community development services in our overall programming and marketing. And again, these are in cooperation with the city and the Chamber of Commerce, and the community development that's there includes us being more involved in business recruitment, retention, and mostly working with more of the local retailers and trying to increase their retail presence in downtown Oklahoma City. Also on our agenda is to do a more proactive job of involving the people that live in the Business Improvement District. One of the things that we have been doing and will continue to do is advocate for residential areas. This is like the quiet zone that is happening right now. We want to provide more proactive education to our downtown residents about the realities of living with urban issues. Some of those are good. Some of them can be a little challenging. In other words, dealing with the street population, educating them on safety issues and things that might be specific to living in an urban district as opposed to a subdivision. We want to add homeowner representation to the bid board as part of the new Business Improvement District, and we're working on that with the nominating committee now. And again, be more proactive in recognizing the needs of our downtown residents and develop the appropriate services for the people that live downtown. We do have renters and homeowners in downtown living in a variety of different types of housing projects. And so we want to make sure that we anticipate those needs. That's all part of our starting and managing a new business improvement district. So some of our priorities and challenges in 2011, just like everyone else's, is going to be Project 180. We are, again, working with the staff of Project 180 on coordination and communication, signage, and then trying to keep people focused on the finished product. You know, being downtown, I get to hear a lot of people complain about navigating downtown, and if I have the opportunity, if I'm in an elevator and I hear talk about it, or if I'm in line at Richie's, you know, getting my lunch, I use the opportunity to really talk to people about how wonderful it's going to be when it's all finished. And I find that this is really effective in getting them to focus not on the hard time they may have had navigating getting to work today, but thinking about how wonderful it's going to be in a couple of years when all the construction is done and the Devon Tower is completed, and we have and the Myriad Gardens is a wonderful place for people to gather, and our streetscapes are beautiful. And when they really stop to think about that really does help ease the pain a little bit. But we really are focusing on trying to communicate to them when and where, what streets are going to be closed, so that they encounter as few surprises as possible. And we work again with the staff of Project 180 to try to get the word out. There's a lot of people in those towers, and it's sometimes challenging to get the word to the folks that work in the office towers about what's going on. But we continue to work with Project 180. Also, there's 4 projects as part of MAPS 3 that we continue to track and try to communicate with the downtown constituency. Of course, all the projects of MAPS 3 affect downtown, but there's 4 that really have probably a greater impact: the modern streetcar, the convention center, the Central Park, and the river improvements. And as those move through the MAPS 3 process and the subcommittees are formed and there's information to give to the downtown community, we try to make sure that they know what's going on and what the progress is on the MAPS 3 projects that have direct impact on downtown. Business development, that's part of our new community development function that we're doing. We're working on systems for business and residential outreach. We're developing an information system for available property, again, so that we can be good partners for the Chamber of Commerce if they have a prospect for either office or retail that they're looking at, that we will be able to tell them what properties are available, what we can assemble, what the lease rates are, and at least in a more real-time basis than we have, right now. And then again, working on the business retention, expansion, and recruitment. We work again with the Chamber. They are going to tend to work more with your national major tenants and on major developments. And we're kind of taking the end of working with the local retailers downtown, as well as trying to bring in local retail and locally owned businesses for downtown. One of the most important things that we do is we build partners, we have projects, and we build relationships with folks. And this is just a sampling of some of the things that we're working on and who our partners are. We partnered with the City of Oklahoma City, the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce, and the Oklahoma City Urban Renewal Association to undertake a housing study. This is actually going to be more of a strategic implementation project. We hope to have a draft of this study by March the 1st and a completed presentation to council before May the 1st. But we've really asked for a 2 to 3 year implementation plan for downtown housing because of the window that we have to try to create more housing downtown. We work with COTPA and then the private sector on downtown parking for strategic planning, knowing what the capacity is, what management of parking issues are, public transit, again with COTPA, with the MAPS subcommittees, the Alternative Analysis Committee, and the Central Council of Governments to work on the modern streetcar and the alternatives analysis. And we're working with the Leadership Oklahoma City Loyal class on developing an employee appreciation program to acknowledge the efforts and the cooperation of downtown employees, particularly in this time of when downtown's just a little bit difficult to navigate. We gave away free ice cream in September to downtown employees as our first kickoff for employee appreciation. And I don't know if we had low expectations or what, but we were just absolutely amazed at the response that we got from the downtown employees, who really did feel appreciated because you gave away ice cream. I mean, it's a small thing, but it really does make a difference. So that's just a brief overview of kind of where we are now and where we're going, and I will be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any now or at any time concerning what's going on in downtown Oklahoma City. And I will probably see a lot of you over the course of the next few months. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. On to citizens to be heard. We have one signed up. George Fina. George, you want to come up and speak? Name and address for the record, please.
George Fina, President of the Oklahoma City Retired Firefighters. I want to thank the council for allowing me to speak this morning. I thank Councilman Mars, Councilman McAtee for making an effort to try and solve the problem that we've come up with here. Also want to thank my wife for getting her up at 5 o'clock this morning, so might have ended my coming up here if I didn't. She wasn't a nice lady as she is, and all the rest of the ladies. I want to thank City Manager Couch, because he's made an effort to try and settle this thing. But I don't remember the date, but to start it off, we had a meeting which this council has made a resolution for us to meet, and you guys are making me warm. Anyway, we had the meeting proper. We were handed a sheet with all the different things that were going to go on with the insurance. At that meeting, and I'm reading off of the sheet that was handed to me, the retirees under 65 were supposed to have a 13.3 increase on their insurance. Retirees under or over 65 were going to have a 30.9 decrease on their insurance. It was a good meeting. When we left, we were pleased. The city had done a great job of working this out. It was reasonable. It helped the people that were over 65, because the majority of them have lesser pensions. They've left a long time ago. I want to also let you know that these people, all of the retired firefighters, have not had a COLA increase for 4 years. And also the state has said that there will not be any more COLA increases unless they're funded by the state or our pension becomes I can't even think of the proper word. It's got to be 80% funded. And right now it's like about 63%. So it can be, in this day and age, it could be a long time. After that meeting, I was really pleased with what went on, so I talked to some of my people. I was very skeptical about putting it all out, because we'd already figured it up, what those increases would be. I took it as a word. Well, next thing, when it came back, there was a lesser increase on the over 65, which lowered their monthly premiums to $306 from $330 something, $39, I think. That also sounds cheap to people, but you got to realize people that are over 65 are also on Medicare. They're paying about $200 a month. I'm talking about a man and a spouse. He's already paying $200 a month to Medicare, what brings that thing up to about 5 something. Then the people under 65 got hit with $220 a month increase. That's terrible. They expected an increase, but we expected one at 13 point something, and they wound up getting one at 41% increase. Now, I know things cost, and I know things are going up, but any one of you sitting around there, if they said to you today that you were going to have a $220 bill, which runs their insurance up to $760-some, if you were going to have this bill come up, I don't care what you make. That's a little bit of a shocker. I don't think you wouldn't know what to do. These guys, I got all these calls and everything else, and I don't know what to do. So when we talked, I talked to not Mr. Couch. I'm not going to say he said this to me, but a city employee, one of the people that we worked with, I said, what the hell is this all about? He said, we made a mistake that we were counting on the other, not the firefighter, but the other unions to accept a different plan. I didn't know that we were tied to them, because if we were tied to the other people, we'd have a cheaper insurance. So I'm thinking, I don't know what to do there. I'm lost when they said, well, we made a mistake. And I know you're going to say that we didn't, but Ron was there. Ron Davis was with me, and when that's him right there, a good-looking fellow on the end, right behind Louis. But they were told, that was told to us. That's a hard one for me to tell those people that we're supposed to get, an increase, but a decent increase. So anyway, I'm kind of giving a little history. Some of you, if you don't know what went on, and Councilman Mars, Councilman McAtee, had a meeting with the manager and his staff. Well, we talked about all the things, and Councilman McAtee came up with a deal, and he said, because I had mentioned this same thing, I said, well, instead of raising everything, why don't we just leave the over 65 at what they're paying this year? And you said that just like it came right out of my head. Now, that was all well and good until I got this new proposal, and they added the 2% to it. That raised it to $361. That was, now 361 and add the 200 from Walmart, from the government, and there you got, that poor guy is paying $561. I mean, you're killing them. This was an attempt, and I think that they worked hard on it. I'm not, now one time am I here blasting the city staff because whatever they've done, because they worked hard to do what they did. And I appreciate it, because I was a city employee for 22 years, almost 23 years. Now, this was doomed to fail to start with, because the reason for it is I'm talking total retirees, and I may be a couple off, but you got 1,155 that are over 65, excuse me, and you got 489 under. What do you think that means? Now, in a football game, you can tell right away who's going to lose, and what you've done is pitted over 65 against under 65. Well, firemen, to be the way they are, we had a meeting, and a guy that's very local got up and he said, he got up and he said, you know what, I'm going to get hit with this 220. He said, but I'm not going to make somebody else pay for my insurance. I'm not going to let people over 65 pay for my insurance. Now, I don't know what can be done here, but I know that there are ways. What I would like to see is what we were promised. It was a feasible increase. Now, I don't know if he can do it or how he can do it, but I've talked to several of you individually, but I'm talking to you all right now. Now, I could have had 200 people here today, and they're not coming here. They're not with signs. They're not raising hell. They're just here to let you know that they're not happy with what's going on. And they and myself would appreciate anything you can do to solve this problem, but not raise the taxes on, not raise the cost on the people over 65, and be a little bit more kind to the people under 65. Now, you know, I've heard the mayor say so many times that this is a great city, and it is. But look back there. Those are the people that made this city great. Not just firefighters, police. I've been called out on late night deals where water people were out there with freezing and water ice hanging all over them, and those guys were out there at 2 o'clock in the morning fixing a water leak. Those are the people that made this a great place to live. Those are the people that you've got to take care of. It's just like a house. If you start kicking the foundation out from under it, and they are your foundation, it's going to fall down. Thank you very much.
Thanks, George. We have somebody else that has requested to speak, Mr. Montoya. He's going to be speaking on a claim that we actually already denied, but he requested to speak. For him just to speak? Right. I was telling you what he was going to be speaking on. Mr. Montoya, if you come to the microphone and give your name and address for the record, sir. This is item 8KB, one that we've already voted to deny.
Good morning. My name is Joe Montoya. I live at 2529 Northwest 13th. I've been a long-term resident of Oklahoma City, and I love this city and enjoy all of its services. I'm coming to you this morning hoping that I can ask you to reconsider your decision on this claim. If it has been denied, I'd like for you to reconsider it. I don't think that denying my claim is really fair. I didn't initiate any of the action that was taken that caused these damages. As I stated in an email that I sent to Ms. Salyer, I was a very passive participant in this thing, and I'm sure that if this expense had been placed on any of y'all, that you wouldn't want it either. And I enjoy all of the services that the city does provide for me. I've never had a problem until now with anything that the city has done. But again, I'm asking you to reconsider this. $2,100 is probably not a big deal to any one of y'all, or even in the big scheme of things. The $2,100 hickey for me is a lot of money, and all I can do is ask you is that I reconsider this because it's not fair.
Mr. Montoya, could I ask staff to come forward and give us a report? The documentation that I received in our packet says that actually our city maintenance crews were dispatched at your request several times during June, and that each time, this happened once in June of 2010 and once then on September 21st, and each time they inspected the line. It was their determination that the line was open and flowing. And then on September 22nd, they actually conducted a video inspection of the line and of our city's main, anyway, and found that there were no defects. And, you know, at that time, they said you were informed that it was an individual problem. So I'm having a little trouble reconciling video inspection with the fact that it is a city problem?
What makes it a city problem in my mind is that, yes, in fact, I initiated all the calls, and they were initiated because of the sinkholes that were created in my backyard, but also in my neighbor's backyard. This concerned me, and I thought, well, it has to do something with the sewer main. So I called the city, and they definitely came out, they inspected. Every time that I called, they responded, and they inspected. The sinkholes were pointed out to them, and they did voice a concern of the sinkholes. What makes it, in my mind, the city's fault is that when this line was replaced, they had to sever my line, which is a private line, and I understand that that is my responsibility. But nowhere, at no time did anybody contact me and say, Mr. Montoya, we're going to sever your line here, and what you're going to need to do is you're going to have a plumber come out here and reconnect this line to make sure that it's reconnected properly. I'd have been fine with that. I probably wouldn't have been happy with it since I wasn't asked, ahead of time to do this, but I would have been happy to do that. But I wasn't approached in any way to take any responsibility for reconnecting this. The connection was made, but it was because of the way that it was made. With the ground shifting, the movement of things, the connection was made poorly, and it allowed that connection to separate and sand to get up inside my private line and plug everything up. I had nothing to do with that.
So I'm a little bit concerned, and Amy, maybe you can help me here, but I'm a little bit concerned that the fact that the work was done by a private company, it wasn't done by the city, even though it was a city contractor, I presume.
Yes.
That connection would not fall under the purview of anything that we would have ultimate responsibility for.
That's correct. The work was conducted by an independent contractor, so it does not, it's not the city's liability. If anything, Mr. Montoya would need to speak with that independent contracting company. And that work was done in 2004, so 6 years have elapsed since that work was done. So I'm not sure. The city came out and as you already stated, the line was down and flowing every time we went out. The video inspection did not show any defects in the city's main line. So
it sounds to me, if I'm correct, what I heard you say was because that initial connection in 06 wasn't made correctly, as it shifted, dirt got into your own line and caused this problem. And we cannot pay a claim on a private line. I know it doesn't sound fair, and I want you to please understand that not one person up here thinks that $2,100 or $2,300 is not a significant problem. I recognize that, but the city's explicit liability is challenged here, and it is not a claim that we can pay.
Well, again, I thank you for your time to allow me to speak here, but I have to disagree with you wholeheartedly, even though it was a private contractor. The private contractor was hired by the city and was done under the authority of the city.
And then I understand, but I think by state law we're prohibited from paying a claim of a third party. It's something that we don't have any discretion over. And I understand that you are disappointed. I want to thank you for taking the time to come down here and know that frequently there are situations that if our hands were not tied, we might choose to do something different. But in this case, we don't have the ability to do anything differently.
Also, you have your remedies to go to district court.
I understand that, ma'am, and I thank you very much for pointing that out to me again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you coming down.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya. We have executive session, and we'll be back.
Mayor, if I could, please, you got to this gentleman a little quick. I had some comments I wanted to make about Mr. Fina's presentation.
Please.
I think all of us understand what George was trying to say and what George was trying to accomplish, and we can all be very concerned about, as the whole country is right now, health insurance and rates, benefits, and everything else. There's just a couple of things I want to make sure that people understood. George talked about being tied to the active employees And that's true when it comes to the plan itself. The health insurance benefit plan is the same. And when they said a mistake was made, the mistake, I assume, Mr. City Manager, was assuming that benefit plan changes were going to be accepted by the two unions.
Negotiated, that's correct.
Which would lower the loss data for the city, which would affect the premium rates. Since you're tied only at the benefit side of it, since they didn't accept the plan changes, then in effect those changes wouldn't happen and the rates, the change in the rates wouldn't happen because of the plan benefits. As it stands now, the over 65s are not getting a rate increase. They're getting a decrease. Even with the 2% raise, they're still getting a decrease. Yes, the under 65s are getting a substantial increase, and everybody understands that. Those rates are based on the actual data from the claims for the three groups. Under the General Accounting Services Board, I think it's called, GASB, under their rules, you have to show the actuarial stuff separately for active employees, for retired employees not on Medicare, and for retired employees on Medicare. You have to show those in separate liabilities. That's where the difference broke out between what the plan is going to do to the over 65 and what the plan is going to do to the under 65. That's something we're required to do. We don't have a choice. We have to show those actuarial studies and the loss separately for all of those groups. Then your rates are based on what your premiums, what the claims have been for those three groups. And you try to determine in the years to come what the rates need to be to pay those claims based on the percentage breakdown between what the city pays and what the employee or retiree pays. And that's what you look at going forward in the percentage rates on it. The 2% increase that happens was a choice that this council made when it was determined that there was a significant liability for retiree health insurance, and we had to find some way to do that, and there was some substantial changes being discussed, and we elected not to do that, but we started making minor changes, and one of that is to raise it 2% every year until we get to 50-50, I believe it was.
That's correct.
Okay.
Over a 10-year period.
So 2% is going to happen based on the action from this council trying to address the unfunded liability of the retiree health insurance plan. So with the items having to be studied separately, with the data from the claims having to be shown separately, then what city staff put forward was a different cost, the premiums per month based on over 65 and under 65. There was as George showed or talked about, there was a discussion about, even though you have to study them separately and you have to keep track of them separately, is there a way to blend the premiums so that you're not hurting the under 65 so much and maybe changing the over 65 either none or a little bit. And those rates were given to George and the other two union retired association representatives, and was told we could do that if that's what they want to do, but it's going to take all three groups. We can't have each group getting their own different deal. All the groups have to agree to one way or the other. As I understand it now, then blending them together is not going to happen. So in effect, those changes that were put out to you all are going to happen. The only solution, as George talks about, finding a way to help, is if there is dollars that this council, that the city and this council want to pull from somewhere else in the budget to dedicate to retiree health insurance, then that's a policy choice that's made. But short of that, we still have to study the claims, we still have to track the claims, we still have to forecast what those claims are going to be in the actuarial out years, and we have to base our premiums based on what it's going to cost to provide health insurance for the retirees. Now, none of those are answers that any of you wanted to hear, probably, but as much sympathy as I have, and I do, I've got two people sitting over in Windsor Hills that are very concerned about the health insurance. My parents fall in one of those categories, and I get to hear from them a lot more than I get to hear from you, trust me. But I just want to make sure you understand the limitations that this council has when it comes to dealing with those things. And based on that, and I'll make a little request and then I'll shut up. Jim, I'd like for you to give me a recommendation on how we perform a study that looks at health insurance on a big picture scale, and I'm talking about active and retiree both, to try to identify a long-term solution to the cost of insurance, both for active and retiree, that might moderate or might modify in the years to come the rate increases that are going to happen. I don't think there's any way to keep from having rate increases in today's world, but I'd like to see if we could step up and get it to where this, we're not talking about these individual little things every year when it comes up. And if you could provide me some information on how we perform that and what's the best way to go about it, I'd like to see if there's some way we couldn't identify that.
I'd be happy to do that. You and I have talked about this a couple of times over the last couple of weeks. One of the things we need to be cognizant as we go forward is that state law requires that if we offer retiree health insurance to our under 65 group, it's the same plan that we give our active employees. And we can't unilaterally change that plan. We have to be respective of the collective bargaining process with both, not for fire at this point in time because they are not in our health insurance program, but with police and with AFSCME. Skylar Kays is here this morning, and we can't just unilaterally make those changes. And we'd be happy to put together and work with Mr. Kays and the other groups, but it'd have to be an ad hoc type of thing. We can't violate the collective bargaining process that goes on. But we'd be happy to do that and set that up and work on a long-term solution. When we've had discussions about this over the last couple of years, we talked about having a long-term sustainable model. And that's still the same goal to do that. We want to have something that will last for years and years and years. We don't want to have this benefit that's out there that they're put in jeopardy. And so we want to work toward that end. I do want to make one further comment to a point that Councilman Mars made, is that the mistake that Mr. Feener brought out was the fact, whether it was a mistake or not, I don't know, that we made an assumption that we were going to get some modifications to our plan because we were looking for some concessions because of the budget situation that we were in. And so we had put out on the table some concessions on the health insurance. We did not obtain those through negotiations. We had rollover contracts, and those rollover contracts did not allow us to make modifications in the health plan. And so if we can't make it to the actives, we couldn't make it to the retirees. Our hands are tied on that. And so because we couldn't make any modifications, then when the net numbers came back calculated, they're a higher amount. I do want to point out, though, that overall, the average cost of increase of the plan from last year to this year is about 5%. The problem with it is that most of it, it's out of whack with the two groups. The over 65 or over 64 group actually saw a decrease of about 17%, and the under 65 saw an increase of about 32%, I think, or 33%, somewhere along those lines. And if you blended those two groups together, obviously, not obviously, it's about 2 to 1, the over 64s compared to the under 65s. The over 64 is a much larger group, and so when you blend those together, it ended up being about a 5% increase if you took it all in. But unfortunately, we're required to have those groups segregated, and the losses that were incurred on the under 65 group was much greater over the last couple of years and drove those costs up. We're self-insured on that, and so we're talking about indemnity program, by the way. We do have other products of insurance that are out there outside of the indemnity program, But right now, I'm specifically talking about the indemnity program, because I think that's what most of you folks are probably engaged with. And so I just want to make those points. But Councilman Mars, I think that's a great idea to come back and work with both the active employees and the retirees. Let's get to the bottom of all the issues and come up with a long-term sustainable model.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Jim. Anybody else?
Yeah, I appreciate all the time that Gary and Larry have spent trying to get to the bottom of this, and I appreciate the concern of all those out there. I've talked to a lot of you separately and together, and I appreciate the conversations I've had with you. One of the things I think, and if we're going back and look at this, trying to find a sustainable model thing again, I'd like to know historically the percentage of cost of employee health insurance, say, periodically over the past several years. I mean, maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I have the assumption, and it is just that we are paying a higher percentage of the city's budget today for health insurance costs than we were paying 20 years ago.
Oh, clearly.
Well, I understand, but I'd like to see that. I think that'd be helpful if we saw, because I sat with a couple of fellows at the retirees Christmas program, and one of the things that we talked about was the promise that they felt like they had, when they came to work as firefighters, they felt like that they'd been made a promise of certain things, and one of them was health insurance. And it's health insurance not for while they were here, but for as long as they're around. If they lasted to retirement, well, then they expected to have health insurance. If that's the perception they had, I don't have any reason to doubt that that's what they thought at the time, and that was the way it presented to them at the time. And the only way for me to justify not doing that at the same cost or close to the same cost would be the information that I'm asking you for. And that is, if in fact we could graphically see that the cost of retiree or employee health insurance originally was 1% of the budget, and now it's 11% of the budget. So those kind of dramatic figures, I think it would show you guys and also help us in making a decision as to what kind of choices that we have to make. Because if it's not the same, if the percentage cost is the same as it was 30 years ago, then we need to look into some of the funds we've got, and that's a priority shift we don't need to be making. But if we have shifted our priorities toward health insurance by paying more premium, then that's something you guys need to know about also, I think. But I feel your pain. I tell you what, when I was, I have the city health insurance now. But before I came back to city council, I was paying $1,100 a month for a health insurance policy that covered my wife and I and was really a major medical policy. That's what's out there for people that don't have the benefit of a retirement-type health program. I mean, it didn't cover anything, and it cost me $1,100 a month. I could hardly, I kept cutting the benefits back, cutting them back because I couldn't afford the premium, but it was $1,100 a month. So still at the price that's being paid, it's still a bargain compared to what you could go get if you didn't have this program. That's small consolation, I know, when you're the one writing the check, but it's true nonetheless.
Jim, when you look for your long-term sustainable solution, would it be helpful to some private sector?
Yeah, I don't know if you were on or not for that, Mr. Ryan. But,
my voice.
Yeah. Mr. Ryan asked if it was possible to look at what other private companies are doing to come up with solutions in this area, too. And I think that's a good suggestion, and we can look at some of that.
Skip.
Mr. Manager, the couple of comments that have been made in reference to what was promised this year, if the rollover contracts would not have been resolved in the way they were with the rollover, this matter would not be an issue today. Is that correct?
If we were able to negotiate some of the things we were asking for in the negotiations with police and ASME, then we would have had a different benefit package out of indemnity, and it would have been passed forward, and the cost would have been less. That's correct.
So the number that Mr. Fina referred to, that was an expectation based upon the hopes of being able to negotiate with the other two unions as opposed to the rollover.
That's correct.
Anyone else? Good. We have executive session. We'll be back.